The world's biggest streamer is about to take a risky gamble. How will Netflix manage its password sharing problem? Hi there, everyone. I'm Jeff, and this is Plain English, where we help you upgrade your English with current events and trending topics. Who knew there was so much to say about password sharing? This is a follow-up to lesson 548, so if you haven't heard that one, go back one episode in your podcast player and listen to that one. Or, if you're on the website, check out plainenglish.com/548. This lesson, however, is number 549, and JR has uploaded the full content to plainenglish.com/549. JR is the producer, and he's the one who makes sure you have the full lesson content each and every Monday and Thursday. Like I said, today's lesson is a continuation of Monday's topic: how Netflix is cracking down on password sharing. The expression we'll talk about today is grow up, and we have a song of the week. Let's get going. Here's a recap of Netflix's new password rules. Every account will identify a primary location, which will be the internet connection of the account holder's home. Any device that connects at the primary location is good to go. Any device that connects at the primary location just once a month is also fine, no matter where it logs in. But if a device connects, and if that device has not connected at home in the last 31 days, then the account holder gets an access code via email. This code must be entered within 15 minutes or access is blocked. These policies are intended to make it inconvenient to share a password outside a household or a family. If I share my password with a friend in another city, then it's going to be very difficult for that friend to stay on my account. I suppose with a lot of effort, we could coordinate a time to share the access code. But most people will probably decide it's not worth it and get their own accounts. Still, some password sharers are single individuals, and they don't think a full Netflix account is worth it. For those people, Netflix has an answer: a sub-account. This lets a primary account holder pay just a little more to add another person outside the household to the account. The other person has his or her own login and password, his or her own primary location. They don't have to password share or share access codes. The cost of that additional user is well below the cost of a new account, only about 25% of the cost of a full account. I think this is a good middle ground. Netflix gets a little extra money for the other subscriber, but I, as an account holder, can be generous and share the account with someone else for just a little bit more. But it doesn't allow people to get a paid service for free when they're really not entitled to it. The classic example is families with older children. As the kids graduate and leave the house, perhaps go to study, the family can pay a little extra so they can watch as individuals with their own logins. Then, when they share an apartment with friends, or when they have families of their own, they can get their own accounts. It's not necessarily fair that a single person pays the same price as a family of 6. So I think you'll find solo households join family households as sub-accounts. I'm sure you know people who have sprawling networks of friends connecting and sharing a single password. That will probably be reduced to smaller networks of closer family and maybe friends on one account. I would think a primary account holder might share with 1 or 2 people, but not 7 or 8 like some do now. I also think this will improve cybersecurity. I can tell you from personal experience that I have changed my passwords to streaming services less often than I should, because I know other people are using the password. And yes, that means I am guilty of password sharing too. But if a sub-account holder has his own username and login, then we can both create strong passwords and change them whenever we need to. Some people will decide they've grown up and they want to set up their own Netflix accounts instead of logging into a friend's account. But if you've built up a playlist and a watch history in your profile on one account, you don't want to lose it when you create a new account. Remember, Netflix knows what to recommend based on what you've watched. If you start a new account or a new profile from scratch, you lose your watch history and the recommendations are not as good. Netflix will help here too. They have made it easy to take a user profile and move it to a different account. This means that if I have my own profile on JR's Netflix, I can take my profile and my watch history and move it to my own account when I'm ready. That's the good. Now for the bad. Netflix has made a good set of rules for the average household, but this is going to be very inconvenient for a lot of people who might not be in an average household. Remember that everything centers on the primary location, and the primary location is defined by the IP address of the internet service at your home. If you log in at home, Netflix remembers that device for 31 days. But if you have a device that you never connect at home, then you need to authenticate that device every 7 days by checking the primary account holder's email address. I, for example, only ever watch Netflix on my computer when I am away from home. So my computer will never access Netflix at home, only away from home. So every time I access Netflix on my computer, I'll need to check my email and log in with a code, or at least I'll do that once a week. This is fine for me. I'm a single person in a single person household, and I can always get my email. But what if I'm a legitimate member of a legitimate Netflix paying household, but my email address is not the primary account email address? Every time I log in, I have to contact someone else, the primary account holder, to get an access code. And I'd better do it within 15 minutes or the code will expire. Imagine a family of 5. One parent travels for work. That parent might want to connect late at night after arriving at a hotel, or download some shows early morning before a flight. The other parent is a nurse, and that parent can't be checking email and sending codes during the day. One kid is away from home at college and keeps odd hours. 2 other kids live at home. How is this family going to manage the access codes? I literally can't even imagine how they'll do it, and this is not an unusual example. There are also people, and this is not as common in the US or Europe, but there are a lot of people who don't have home internet. They only access Netflix. They only access the internet ever via a mobile device. In that case, there is no primary location because everything, every family member, every connection, every time is mobile. They will have to re-authenticate every device every 7 days. There are other dynamics here too. What about divorced couples with children? Mom and dad maybe don't want to be texting a lot. What about a family, a married couple, that simply live in other cities for work, immigration, or other reasons? What if a family has 2 homes? Every television and every device connecting at the second home would need to be re-authenticated every 7 days. Being an account holder is going to be like having a part-time job with all the authentication that will be needed. I think the sub-account holder is a great idea. That is going to work. That is a legitimate way of extending a subscription to 1 or 2 other people who don't live in your home, and it's paying something, but it's cheaper. That's fair. But this business of authenticating via email. This, in my opinion, is going to be a major problem. I just don't think that in 2023 you should create all these rules based on a place. It's going to be really messy, especially with the way households and families legitimately work in the year 2023. Now, I think the answer is to use QR codes, authentication apps, something like that, and to tie account access to a person, not a location. We'll have to see. This is coming to your Netflix account in March or April 2023. Today's expression is a little bit of a joke. It's a real expression, but I used it in a way that's like a joke. The expression is to grow up. The classic definition of grow up is to advance to maturity. When we're talking about people, we're talking about that part of your childhood that lasts until you're about 18 years old. So here are some ways to use it. Where did you grow up? That means, where did you spend your childhood? Where did you live in those years where you advanced in maturity to age 18? For example, I was born in the U.S. state of New Jersey, but I grew up in Connecticut. What does that mean? I was born in New Jersey, but at a very young age, my family moved to Connecticut. And I lived in the state of Connecticut from about age 6 until age 18. So I say, I grew up in Connecticut. Here's another expression. Kids grow up fast these days. That means that kids are exposed to adult themes earlier in their lives. Kids are required to process adult themes earlier and earlier in their lives. This could be violence, sexuality, divorce, eating disorders, technology, whatever. What a 15-year-old experiences today is a lot different from what a 15-year-old experienced half a century ago. So you can say kids grow up fast these days because they're exposed to mature themes earlier in their lives. You can also say kids in the city grow up faster than kids in rural areas. This is a generality, obviously, but kids who grow up in big cities will experience adult themes earlier than kids in a quieter location. Speaking in general, of course. But none of this is how I used it today. You can use this phrase ironically or tongue-in-cheek to describe a person who's an adult, a fully grown, fully formed, mature adult human being who nonetheless needs to act more like an adult and less like a kid in some way. Now, I don't know how it is in other places, but in the US, kids, as they get older, need services. They need health insurance. If they drive, they need car insurance. They need a cell phone with a cell phone plan. They need Spotify and Netflix profiles. Need, of course, is relative, but you know what I mean. And as those children grow up, they may leave the nest. They may go live in their own place. And everyone does this at their own pace, but eventually they will grow up and have their own accounts. They will mature. They will transform from being someone on another person's account to being someone who has his or her own account and pays his or her own bill. The cycle of life, right? Well, some adults in their 20s, 30s, or I can personally attest, even older than that, and who make good money, still share passwords as if they were children in another person's household. I'm not judging, I'm just saying. And with the new Netflix rules, some of those people will decide to grow up and get their own accounts. Now, this is a half joke. These people are not children who need to reach maturity. Even I share passwords. I give passwords and I receive passwords. We are all adults who do this. But in this one respect, we may decide that we need to take this step into maturity from being added on one person's account to having our own accounts. So in this one respect, we decide to grow up. This is not a criticism. This is just saying a person decides to take one step toward independence or maturity. People say this about themselves. I think I just need to grow up and then say something you have to do to mature. Here's a personal example. I don't have a will. There's no excuse for that. For a long time, I thought I was young, I wasn't going to die, and even if I died, I didn't have enough assets to make having a will worth it, and I didn't give it any thought. But now, I have more savings, I have property, I have a storage unit in Chicago full of furniture, and I'm not old, but I'm at the age where I really should have a will. Let's just leave it at that. I need to grow up and take care of that. I need to take that step toward maturity. Sometimes we say grow up if we know we need to confront a problem. A confident adult handles problems head on. A child runs away from problems. So let's say you're in a fight with your best friend and you're not talking to each other. You guys just need to grow up and work out your differences. You need to act more maturely. This is a long lesson, so let's do the song quickly. JR has selected Try by Pink as the song of the week. The song asks, why do we fall in love so easy even when it's not right? It's about disappointment in love. But the song says, just because it burns doesn't mean you're going to die. You've got to get up and try. Try by Pink is the song of the week, thanks to JR. I told you I password share in both directions too, mostly one direction. But there are one or two places where I use another person's login. So that example about growing up and getting your own account, that's not a criticism, it's just an example of how you use the term grow up. Well, that's all for today's lesson. If you want to let me know what you think about this topic, you can always share that in our free Facebook group. To get there, just visit plainenglish.com/Facebook and you'll be taken right there. We'll be back on Monday with a new topic. See you then.